Man's disproportion. 43. That is as far as our instinctive knowledge takes us. If that knowledge is false, there is no truth in man, and if it is true, it gives great cause for humiliation, for he is compelled to abase himself either way. And, since he cannot exist without accepting that knowledge, my wish is that, before entering upon deeper research into nature, he should consider her seriously and at leisure, examine himself too, and recognize what proportion there is. Let man then contemplate nature in her full and lofty majesty, and turn his eyes away from the mean objects which surround him. Let him look at that dazzling light hung aloft as an eternal lamp to lighten the universe. Let him behold the earth, a mere dot compared with the vast circuit which that orb describes, and stand amazed to find that the vast circuit itself is but a very fine point, compared with the orbit traced by the stars, as they roll their course on high. But if our vision holds there, let imagination pass beyond. It will fail to form a conception long before nature fails to supply material. The whole visible world is but an imperceptible speck in the ample bosom of nature. No notion comes near it. Though we may extend our thought beyond imaginable space, yet compared with reality we bring to birth mere atoms. Nature is an infinite sphere whereof the centre is everywhere, the circumference nowhere. In short, imagination is brought to silence at the thought, and that is the most perceptible sign of the all-power of God. Let man reawake, and consider what he is compared with the reality of things. Regard himself lost in this remote corner of nature, and from the tiny cell where he lodges, to wit the universe, weigh at their true worth earth, kingdoms, towns, himself. What is a man face to face with infinity? But, to behold another prodigy equally amazing, let him seek out the most delicate things he knows. Let a mite present to view, in its tiny body, parts incomparably more tiny, legs with their joints, veins in the legs, blood in the veins, humours in the blood, drops in the humours, vapours in the drops. Subdividing again, let him exhaust himself in these conceptions, and let the last object of his effort be the subject of our present discourse. He will think, perhaps, that he has reached the limit of minuteness in nature. I will show him her infinite greatness. I will open to him therein a new abyss. I will paint for him not only the visible universe, but all the imaginable vastness of nature enclosed within this atomized atom. Let him behold therein an infinity of universes, each with its firmament, planets, earth in the same proportion as the visible world, living creatures on that earth, and finally mites, in which he will find again all that was in the first, and still finding in the rest the same repeated endlessly, ceaselessly. Let him stand dumb before these wonders, as amazing in their minuteness as the others in their vastness. For who can fail to marvel that our human body, which anon was imperceptible in our universe, which is itself imperceptible in the sum of things, is now a colossus, nay a world, nay a universe, compared with the nothingness which lies beyond our reach? If a man will look at himself as I suggest, the sight will terrify him, and, seeing himself suspended in the material form given him by nature, between the two abysses of infinity and nothingness, he will tremble beholding these marvels, and I think that, as his curiosity turns to awe, he will rather gaze in silence than dare to question them. For, I ask, what is man in nature? A cipher compared with the infinite, an all compared with nothing, a mean between zero and all. Infinitely unable to grasp the extremes, the end of things and their principle are for him hopelessly hidden in an impenetrable secret. for he is equally unable to see the nothing whence he springs, and the infinite in which he is swallowed up. What then is left to him but a glimpse of the mean of things, in eternal despair of ever knowing either principle or end? They all proceed from nothing, and are borne onwards to infinity. Who will follow out this amazing process? The author of these wonders comprehends them. None other can. Failing to perceive these two infinites, men have rashly plunged into an examination of nature as though they were in some proportion to her. They have, strange to say, tried to grasp the principles of things, and thence to go on to know the whole. Their presumption is as infinite as the object which they seek. For it is certain that you cannot embark on this without infinite presumption or infinite ability, infinite as nature herself. Knowledge will teach us that, as nature has stamped the image of herself and her author upon all things, they almost all inherit her twofold infinity. Thus we see that all the sciences are infinite in the range of the research they allow. For who doubts that geometry offers an infinite infinity of problems awaiting solution? They are equally infinite in the number and fineness of their premises. For it is evident that final premises are not independent, but are founded on others, which, having again others to uphold them, can never be final. But we deal with those which seem to our reason final, as we do with material things, wherein we term invisible a point beyond which our senses see nothing further, although it is naturally capable of infinite division. Of these two scientific infinities, greatness is far the more obvious, and so only a handful of men have claimed unlimited knowledge. I shall speak of everything, quoth Democritus. But the infinitely little is much less perceptible. Philosophers have much oftener claimed to reach it, and here they have all come to grief. Hence the familiar titles of First Principles, Principles of Philosophy, and the like, as pretentious in fact, though not in appearance, as that dazzling title De Omni Scibili. We naturally think ourselves far more capable of reaching the centre than of grasping the circumference, for the visible expanse of the world is visibly greater than we are. But since we are greater than small things, we believe that we are more capable of possessing them. Yet quite as great capacity is needed to attain the nothing as the all. It must be infinite for both, and he, methinks, who had grasped final principles, could also manage to reach the infinite. The one depends on the other, and the one leads to the other. These extremes meet and combine by the very reason of their distance apart. They find each other in God and in Him alone. Let us, then, know our limits. We are something, but we are not all. Such existence as we have deprives us of the knowledge of first principles, whose source is the nothing, and the pettiness of our existence hides from our sight the infinite. Our intelligence stands in the order of intelligibles, just where our body does in the vast realm of nature. Confined as we are in every way, this middle state between two extremes figures in all our faculties. Our senses perceive nothing extreme. Too much noise deafens us, too much light blinds, too great distance or too great nearness hampers vision, too many words or too few obscure speech, too much truth baffles us. I know some men who cannot understand that 4 from naught leaves nothing. First principles are too plain for us. Too much pleasure is a bore. Too many concords in music are unpleasing. Too many benefits are an annoyance. We desire means to overpay the debt. Benefits bestowed are welcome so long as they seem capable of repayment. After that, gratitude turns to resentment. We feel neither extreme heat nor extreme cold. Qualities in excess are hostile to us and imperceptible. We do not feel them, we suffer them. Extreme youth and extreme age block the mind, like too much or too little instruction. In short, extremes are for us non-existent, and we are nothing to them. They escape us, or we escape them. Such is our true condition, rendering us incapable of certain knowledge or of absolute ignorance. We sail over a vast expanse, ever uncertain, ever adrift, carried to and fro. To whatever point we think to fix and fasten ourselves, it shifts and leaves us, and if we pursue it, it escapes our grasp, slips away, fleeing in eternal flight. Nothing stays for us. That is our condition, natural, yet most contrary to our inclination. We have a burning desire to find a sure resting-place and a final fixed basis whereon to build a tower rising to the infinite. But our whole foundation cracks, and the earth yawns to the abyss. Let us then cease to look for security and stability. Our reason is ever cheated by misleading appearances. Nothing can fix the finite between the two infinites, which enclose it and fly from it. This once understood, I believe that we shall remain at rest, each in the state assigned to him by nature. The middle state, which is our lot, being always far removed from either extreme, what matters it if another enjoys a trifle more knowledge of things? If he has that, it only means that they come to him somewhat sooner. Is he not still at infinite distance from the end, and do 10 years more of life raise the span a whit nearer to eternity? In the face of these infinites, all finites are equal, and I see no cause for applying my imagination to one rather than to the other. Merely to compare ourselves with the finite is painful. Were man to begin by self-examination, he would see how incapable he is of further advance. How can a part possibly know the whole? But a man may perhaps hope to know at least the other parts with which he has some proportion. But all the parts of the universe are so linked together that it seems to me impossible to know one apart from another or from the whole. For example, man is related to everything that falls within his ken. He has need of space to contain him, of time to last, of motion to live, of the elements of which he consists, of warmth and food to nourish him, of air to breathe. He sees light, he feels bodies. In short, he has a relationship with everything. So then, in order to understand man, we must know whence it comes that he needs air to breathe, and in order to understand air, we must know whence comes its relation to the life of man, etc. Fire cannot exist without air, so to understand the one, we must understand the other. Hence, since all things are cause and effect, supported and supporting, at first or second hand, and since all are united by a natural and imperceptible chain, which links all together, the most distant and most different, I hold it impossible to know the parts without knowing the whole, or to know the whole without knowing the parts in detail. The eternity of things in itself or in God must confound our brief duration. The fixed and steadfast immobility of nature, compared with the change continually taking place in ourselves, hath necessarily the like effect. And what completes our incapacity to know things is the fact that they are simple in themselves, whereas we are composed of two natures, opposite and different in kind, namely soul and body. For it is impossible that the reasoning part in us should be other than spiritual, and, though it were claimed that we are simply corporeal, that would far more exclude us from the knowledge of things, there being nothing so inconceivable as to say that matter knows itself. We cannot possibly know how it should know itself. And so, if we are simply material, we can know nothing at all. And if we are composed of spirit and matter, we cannot know perfectly things that are simple, whether spiritual or corporeal. Hence it comes that almost all philosophers confound ideas and speak of corporeal things in terms of spirit, and of spiritual things in terms of matter. For they say boldly that bodies tend to fall, seek their centre, fly from destruction, fear the void, that the thing possesses inclinations, sympathies, antipathies, which are all attributes that belong to mind alone. And, speaking of spirits, they regard them as possessing locality, and they assign to them movement from place to place, qualities belonging to body alone. Instead of accepting these things in their pure simplicity, we tinge them with our own qualities, and we set the stamp of our composite being upon the simple things that lie before us. You would surely think, when you see how we form everything of mind and body, that the resulting blend would be quite intelligible to us. Yet that is what we comprehend least of all. Man is to himself the most abnormal object in nature, for he cannot conceive what body is, still less what is mind, and least of all how a body can be united to a mind. This is man's crowning difficulty, and yet it is his essential being. How the spirit is attached to the body is incomprehensible to man, and yet this is what man is. Finally, to complete the proof of our weakness, I shall conclude by the two following considerations. 44. Two infinites, the mean. Reading too fast or too gently, you are unintelligible. 45. Too much and too little wine. Give him none. He cannot find truth. Similarly, if you give him too much. 46. Feed the body little by little. Too much food produces little substance. 47. Nature refuses extremes. Nature has fixed us firm in a central position, so that if we change one scale of the balance, we change the other too. Je fais son, zo trekai. This makes me think that there are springs in the head, so arranged that if you move one, you move its opposite also. 48. What a host of creatures, non-existent for the philosophers of yesterday, have been discovered for us by the telescope. They used to take Holy Writ openly to task about its vast number of stars, saying, "We know that there are no more than 1,022.